Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Ripple CTO talks to economic expert. Crypto for cross-border payments likely to have legs after lockdown. Yes, indeed, this economic expert, who seemed like a very sharp individual, he was talking about the importance of real-world utility and the staying power of any cryptocurrency would need to be derived from such. Well, I'll tell you what, XRP sure as hell has a lot of utility here. And they were talking about hyperinflation and what impact that might have on XRP and the cryptocurrency asset class in terms of price action. They're talking about the idea of just purchasing, investing in crypto, diversifying just as a hedge against potential economic chaos the world over. But before we go any further here, if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please delicately tap that like button. You don't have to, but if you'd be willing to, I would appreciate it, because that will tell YouTube to push this content out onto more unsuspecting victims. And also, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel, because it is the best channel on all of the YouTubes. Not even a close second, man. Think about that. That's pretty cool stuff. You want to be a part of that. I have to give a huge thank you to all of you. Late yesterday evening, my channel hit 25,000 subscribers. Woot woot! That is amazing. I'm telling you, brain explode. Brain explode. It's just all over the walls now. It's a mess. My brain has exploded. And it's just amazing because, if you fast forward just a little over a year ago to the beginning of June, so June 2019, I had at that point, my channel had been around for about half a year, and I had a little shy of 230 subscribers. So in a 13, 14 month range, I went from that to over 25,000 subscribers, and it is beyond humbling. I could not thank all of you enough to have this opportunity to talk about what is my most favoriteest thing on the planet, like in terms of a hobby, XRP, and just following what is happening with Ripple and XRP. So I just wanted to take a moment. I'd be remiss if I did not, just to send a very sincere thank you to all of you. I can't even put into words how much I actually appreciate this and how it's just completely unreal. And it's been nuts. Over the last 24 hours, my channel's gained, I don't know if there's something in the water, but my channel's gained almost 300 subscribers just in the last 24 hours. And my channel normally gets about 500,000 views per month. And so what's that come out to? What's the math on that? 15, 20,000 a day. And yesterday I had the most views in any day ever, and it was just a hair shy of 36,000. So again, just all this happening at once with that many views and 25,000 subscribers. It was just kind of a world. Like I sat there with my jaw dropped, like in stunned disbelief. So I had to convey that to you because I again appreciate it so much. So we'll go ahead and jump into the content now. But this is just astonishing to me, and I will say also though, I'm going to continue running this channel for as long as you are willing to tolerate me. That's what I said on a tweet here. It's on your screen yesterday. So anyway, speaking of hyperinflation, I came across this tweet from Tyler Winklevoss, and it struck me, so I thought I'd go ahead and respond. So here's what he wrote. The pandemic has catapulted us into the future, hastening failure of offline retail, uptake in streaming, social media, also exposing structural problems with fiat, ballooning debt to GDP ratios, and likelihood of hyperinflation, which means it's accelerating Bitcoin adoption. And a lot of that makes sense. I'm not completely convinced that we're going to experience hyperinflation anytime soon. I'm going to talk a bit about that as soon as I hop into the next piece with David Schwartz conversation with that economic professional there. But when he started talking about this accelerating Bitcoin, I just had a few questions that I thought were worth posing and see if he'd respond. And not surprisingly, he has not and probably won't. But he's talking about Bitcoin adoption. Okay, so I wrote the following. But will Layer 2 Lightning Network ever work? And if it does, is it not a problem that it requires centralization via payment channels? Also, how do you square the concentration of Chinese mining power? Look, absolutely nothing, and I always want to be clear, there's like nothing personal against anybody that has a different opinion than me. I love diversity of thought, But when these questions are asked of these individuals, it's just like radio silence. I've never heard a legit, reasonable response to any of these concerns. In terms of Bitcoin actually one day being used of money, the concentration of mining, and how that could result in power. Like, imagine if Bitcoin were the global reserve currency, God forbid. And, I mean, the Bitcoin maxi trolls would be thrilled. They'd be flipping out, Bitcoin, global reserve, and that's what they'd be saying and sounding like, and as they yammer on, and breath smelling like room temperature cottage cheese, staying warm by their dumpster fires under the bridge. They'll be doing that. But as far as all these other concerns, what if the Chinese government actually did just co-opt these mining operations, and then Bitcoin's the global reserve currency, and that would give them a lot of power, wouldn't it? In that hypothetical scenario, is this not something worth discussing? I mean, not that I think that the dollar is going to lose its status as a global reserve currency anytime soon. It certainly could lose it. But don't assume just because something hasn't happened that it won't happen. That would definitely be a mistake. Which segues perfectly into this now. Again, this is a piece from You Today titled Ripple CTO. Of course, that's David Schwartz, co-creator of the XRP ledger, and again, Ripple CTO, talks to economics expert, crypto for cross-border payments likely to have legs after lockdown. Ripple CTO David Schwartz invited, I'm going to butcher the last name probably, I'm going to try, maybe not, Barry Eichengreen, that might be it, Eichengreen, that's probably it, professor of economics and political science at the University of California, Berkeley, to the Ripple podcast called Blockstars. And I can tell you what, I have become a fan of Blockstars. I think David Schwartz does a great job. If I could just tweak one thing, I'd love for him to not hold back, just in terms of sharing his opinion. It seems to me like it's being used, I mean, he'll share some opinions, don't get me wrong, but like he uses it as a platform to mostly ask questions of the individual on the show. But I think it would be a lot more fun and engaging, especially since he's such a brilliant mind, if there's just more of a back and forth and a little bit more sharing of his opinions on the show. But even so, like it's a great podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, just Google Ripple Blockstars and check the thing out. And so I listened to this one as I was driving around earlier today. Anyway, the conversation was about the post-lockdown state of the economy, safe havens against the expected hyperinflation in cryptocurrencies, in particular, USD-backed stablecoins and crypto used for transnational payments. Now, Barry Eichengreen, also an economic historian, admitted that the current situation with the pandemic that began in China and the government-forced lockdown that followed hardly has any analogs in the past. Never before had the U.S. economy been shut down. Eichengreen was unable to come up with any historical analogies. Right, this is the first time we've ever had anything happen like this. It just voluntarily shutting down the global economy effectively is what has happened here. Now, Professor Eichengreen approved the relief strategy that governments around the world would choose to follow in order to support businesses and the well-being of average citizens. However, he admitted that despite choosing the best tack under the circumstances, cash printing will have certain issues in the future. And yeah, no kidding, right? I've been talking about this a lot lately. It keeps popping up in topics that are in the news and crypto media, but absolutely this idea of printing money as if there's not going to be consequences. No, you're debasing the United States dollar, plain and simple. And so whether the ramifications come sooner, as within the next 6 months, 12 months, or if it's a decade from now, it's still going to hit. And here's a quote from him. I think governments have to do what it takes to keep financial markets functioning by buying everything that moves. There will be a bill to pay down the road. Absolutely. And one of the interesting things that he stated in this piece, because he was asked by David Schwartz, he's like, so do you think that we're going to experience runaway inflation anytime soon? And he's like, well, and I'm phrasing here, of course, but he said something to the effect of, well, if you have me back on this podcast and say it's 2030, so 10 years from now, it may very well be the case that we're experiencing runaway inflation, hyperinflation by that point. But from his purview, over the next few years in particular, he finds it to be unlikely. He didn't definitively state no, absolutely not, but he seemed to find it to be very unlikely. And his rationale was that even though you're increasing the supply of money by printing all of this money, which does debase the actual purchasing power and value of the United States dollar, The point he was making is that he expects there to be such diminished economic output from people just not spending, given what's happening with the economy because of the global pandemic. He expects that global output's going to go down to such a degree that manufacturers, companies the world over selling their products and services, there will be fewer purchasing, and so prices would come down. So in the short term, he was actually proposing that perhaps it's more likely that you would have more of a deflationary effect, even though the supply is increasing. But again, he doesn't seem to think that that's something that's going to be sustainable forever. So as far as runaway inflation over the next few years, he seems to pretty strongly think no. But, ask a different person, get a different opinion, right? So there could be something to that, though. I mean, given how many people have hit the unemployment lines because of all this, I don't know how quickly things are going to get back to normal. So if it goes on for a prolonged period of time, maybe he's right. He certainly could be. Not many people are saying that. Most people are, they got the doomsday speak going on, especially if they're in the world of Bitcoin. It's almost like they want it to be true, the Bitcoin maxi trolls. It makes me wonder. Some of them, it seems like they do because they want Bitcoin to take. Or they think that's what will happen. But it perhaps is not the case that it's going to be doomsday in that regard. But even so, as far as utilizing XRP or cryptocurrency as a hedge against all of this, this individual, he did say that he thinks that it's certainly likely that individuals are going to head that direction. Then he said, again, as far as the long-term viability of any cryptocurrency, if it's to be had, and by the way, if it has utility, then that's what he's looking at. And he specifically stated, and he said this is why he was so glad to be on Blockstars, given that David Schwartz works at Ripple. He specifically cited the problems associated with cross-border payments today from the legacy financial system. And he made it clear. He made no bones about it. He said cryptocurrency can help to fix this problem. And he said that in conjunction with utility matters, effectively. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the message that he was conveying, which is my entire investment thesis. So it makes me think I'm onto something there. And I'm not offering financial advice, just to be clear. I'm just sharing my opinion. I don't have a financial background. But anyway, they have this little subheading too, drawing similarities between gold and Bitcoin. Many investors are now fleeing to safe havens such as gold and silver, which they believe will preserve value in the U.S. if the USD loses its purchasing power or exhibits a substantial decrease in value. And Eichengreen stated that Bitcoin and gold and Bitcoin are somewhat similar in this case, since both are valuable because of community trust in those assets. Gold, this was interesting too, he did say this, gold does not have any intrinsic value. Said neither gold nor Bitcoin have any industrial use. And he didn't say no industrial use, that was what was written there, but he just cited that there's limiting manufacturing opportunities with the usage of gold. So he said that it's such a small amount of opportunity in terms of actually using it in manufacturing that it just doesn't have any intrinsic value. Gold can look pretty, and that's about it. And similar to Bitcoin, apparently, in his perspective there, but it does come down to something's worth something if people say it is. That's it. It's the United States dollar isn't backed by anything, so there you go. People believe that's got value. But anyway, it was just a really interesting podcast. So it was fun to kind of hear what they both had to say, especially as it pertains to people's behavior in terms of buying XRP and cryptocurrency, just thanks to the potential, the fear of runaway inflation. Which, at this point, I mean, it could happen, but even if it increases, even if it does, is it going to be true hyperinflation? I don't know, man. I guess I found him to be fairly persuasive. Well, that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!